Howdy, I'm Nate, and welcome to my garage workshop. In today's video, we're going to be making a kid's play table. The dimensions I give in the video are given in relative terms, so you can decide whatever dimensions you would like. But for your information, I used 24 inches wide on the plywood sheet by 48 inches long, and the table height I wanted it to be at 18 inches. Anyways, enjoy. I started this build by cutting out the tabletop from a sheet of 1/2 inch plywood. After ripping with a circular saw, I went over and cross-cut on the table saw, making sure to use my zero clearance insert to avoid chip out. The apron is made of 1x6 lumber, and I cut the long sides 2 inches less than the length of the tabletop. The short sides were cut 2 3/4 inches less than the width of the tabletop. These dimensions allow the tabletop to overhang the apron and give sufficient room for a lipped edge. I cut a 1/4 inch rabbet on each end of the long apron boards using a 3/4 inch straight bit with the help of the router guide. The rabbets ended up being a 1/4 inch deep. I did that in 2 1/8 inch passes. To join the apron pieces, I used wood glue, brad nails, and screws. I applied the glue to the joint and clamped it at 90 degrees to encourage the boards to be square. As an option, you can throw a few brad nails in to quickly tack the boards together. The brads are helpful because a few of my boards were cupped and twisted. A few countersunk screws on each corner held things together while they dried. To increase the strength of the apron, I decided it was best to reinforce it with 2x3 lumber with cross braces and mitered corner braces. I clamped the apron upside down on my flat work surface and ensured the corners were square before attaching the braces with 2-inch brad nails. Each table leg was made from 2 pieces of 1x4 board. These should be 1/2 inch shorter than the desired table height. I used a simple tapering jig to add a little style to one edge of each leg. I have a quick video on how I made this jig. You can find a link in the video card or description. 2 leg boards would be joined with a rabbet joint to make one leg. With the router set up exactly as before, I cut out a left-facing rabbet on the non-tapered edge of 2 leg boards, and then a right-facing rabbet on the non-tapered edge of 2 left-facing boards. Next, I joined together a rabbeted board with a non-rabbet board by gluing and nailing them together on the rabbet with the non-tapered edges. Keep the leg boards at as much of a 90-degree angle as possible. The last piece of lumber was 1x2 and used to create a lip around the table and cover the edges of the plywood top. With a 1/2 inch straight bit, I cut out a groove centered on the 2-inch wide side, which ran down the length of the board. For the size table I am making, I needed 2 of these 1x2 8-foot sections. At this point, I thought it best to apply a priming coat to all my workpieces. This helps to touch up the hard-to-reach places before joining. With the paint dry, I proceeded by attaching the tabletop to the apron. I used 1 1/4 inch screws which were countersunk into the support braces, which created a tight connection. You can also connect them directly to the apron. Just make sure to pre-drill the screw holes to avoid accidentally splitting the apron. Use wood filler to cover all countersunk screws. Mitre the rails at 45 degrees on each end. The length of the rail is dependent on their grooves reaching from corner to corner, so I crept up on this by cutting the mitre over and over until it was just right. Attach the rails with glue and brad nails. If your groove was cut off center, then make sure all the rails are oriented similarly, or their height will not match up. Clean up any corners with a round-over bit on the router. The last piece of the puzzle is to attach the legs. With the legs clamped to the apron, I pre-drilled the bolt holes. I used 16 carriage bolts sized at 5/16 by 2 inch long, each with a washer and a nut. Each leg would get 4 bolts, 2 on each face. With all the legs attached, I went ahead and flipped it over and inspected for a wobble and was well pleased there was no wobble. I painted the table with 2 coats of semi-gloss Swiss coffee. After it cures, it'll be ready to play on. Here you have the finished product, all staged for a child to play at. It's great for the train sets, some trucks and balls. The lipped edge will keep the toys from falling off, at least too frequently, and give the child a nice place to play where they can easily see their toys and admire the different colors.